So I'm not sure about
I've always found I was good at math.
oh, well, that's
But sometimes the way that I solve the problems are different. Right. Being trying to solve it, so my kids get frustrated. Right. Like, that's not how it works.
right. And
A lot of times it would be
Okay, thank you so much. Great conversations.
Weird.
If I can get your attention.
Drawing a whole ball.
they're trying to give them a bunch of different
Okay, awesome. Great job, great conversations, and that's exactly what your students do here in these classrooms. They talk about, they compare, and they talk about their ideas, their approaches of solving a problem. Communication skills, big part of Common Core. Problem-solving skills, big part of Common Core. Collaboration, part of Common Core. So, here's some of the. Should I go over the responses first, or should I?
Sure. Well, something I just noticed walking around is that students, parents, approach the problem in a lot of different ways. Some chose to make a diagram, some chose to set up a ratio, and the idea behind Common Core and these new standards is to create problems that have multiple entryways and to honor these multiple approaches to different problems.
So here's some examples of what others have done and how they have interpreted the solutions. I hope you can see from there. Here we have a diagram. Here's the guppies. Here's a rectangle split into 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts. Guppies representing 25%, is that right? Yeah. Then adding another rectangle that is the same size of the 25%. Put it all together into another rectangle, and you get now 2 rectangles are shaded out of 5, 2/5, which is also 40%. Yeah. See different ways of approaching it. Here's another approach. Here we will use what would they call out of post-its. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 post-its. Another post-it representing, an addition to the group. So that's 2 out of 5 post-its that are shaded. Here's another example. The original rectangle split into 4s. Add another 4, and here the guppies right here swimming. And it becomes 2/5 as well. Now we have some more sophisticated, I should say, answers, right? With formulas, variables, fractions. And here, so I guess I can say a transition from 6th grade, 5th grade thinking to 7th grade, 8th grade type of thinking, yeah? Yes.
Can we see how many people thought it was 50%?
Absolutely. You want to take a tally then? Yeah. Okay, yeah, awesome.
Okay, go
So,
back to 4th grade.
no, not at all. So now, of course, students might have thought the same way, and actually a lot of students thought that it was 50%. And why do you think they thought it was 50%? And this brings a great topic of discussion to clarify their reasoning or their
Going to the short
No, it's 25% plus 25%.
You misread the question.
So okay, is interpreting the question, so that's a problem right there. Like understanding the question, what the question is asking, big part of of solving math problems. What else? What do you think there's another misconception of why you thought that maybe it was 50% instead of 40%? Anybody else? Yeah.
If you're doing it too fast in your head, you're not thinking about adding the other guppy, so there's actually 5 now instead of just 4.
Yeah.
And I know we said that this was maybe less sophisticated, but I think there's a lot of value in modeling with mathematics, and misconceptions is just doing 25% plus 25% would be cleared up with models or diagrams like this. It makes it very clear why the correct answer is 2/5 or 40%.
Now, those of you who thought it was 50%, when you saw the diagram, did that clarify your reasoning? Did that clarify your misconception? Yeah. So diagrams are a great way to represent, mathematics. enjoy the little problem here. So the power of performance tasks. Again, in the transition of Common Core and a new way of teaching mathematics for us, who is doing the heavy lifting in mathematical thinking in our classrooms? Is it the teachers or is it the students? Well, what we presented is just an example, just a snapshot of what sometimes happens in our classrooms. You know, you were given a problem. You were the students. We were the teachers, right? Did we teach anything to you? Did we say anything? You were learning, you as students or students themselves, they learn through each other. They communicate. They're doing the discovery, problem solving on their own. So for the most part, students should be doing the heavy lifting in thinking. Okay? We are the facilitators of their learning. So when students are confronted with a challenging math problem, rigorous instruction involves helping students to clarify their thinking. Okay? And not just lecturing. You know, the days of lecturing are pretty much hopefully gone. And letting them come up with approaches to solutions, and even if they're wrong, you know, honoring the mistakes, because we learn through mistakes. And that is, you know, the shift of Common Core as well. That you're going to be making mistakes. Chances are you're going to be making more mistakes and you're going to be more successful. But you have to learn from them. You know, the whole growth mindset and such. So again, I don't know if you've seen some of the posters that we have around here. Failing is just another way of learning. Okay? So once students feel comfortable of making mistakes, then they're going to be able to think and express their thinking and be more and approach math in a very different way and not be so intimidated, you know, by it. Okay?
And just a quick aside with that, I was working with a student parent, just walking around, and she felt like she was stuck. And instead of just giving her the answer, I kind of led her to get to the answer herself. And that's a big idea behind the Common Core standards as well. So not just simply giving answers, but letting students I think it says, rigorous instructions involves helping students clarifying their thinking about the task and letting them come up with a solution on their own.
So, I mean, are they starting out with this kind of like open field to explore, or are they given some initial direction to give?
I think everything's building on background knowledge. So we're presenting them with problems that they haven't fully learned the content yet, but they have background knowledge to approach the problem and then leading them to that point.
And our approach in teaching math through problem-based learning or inquiry-based is more like, here's the situation, here's the problem, let's see what, based on what you've learned in the past, let's see how we can solve this. That will lead into, I don't know, like multiplying fractions per se. So those real-world problem situations lead into the mechanics or into the more of the procedural mathematics per se. Yeah. So these word problem, once they explore, at the end, that's when we summarize it and say, oh, by the way, you just are learning how to add fractions with uncommon denominators.
So it's creating a need for that math. So if you saw, if you gave them a problem and it was repeated addition over and over again, they know how to do that addition, and then we ask, well, how can we make it more efficient? Well, we introduce multiplication. So it's building off of what they already know, but they're kind of doing the discovery as to why do we need this. And if there's a need for it, then they're more apt to want to learn it and to remember it.
Okay, so without further ado, let me introduce, Ms. Lass, she's been helping me here, in talking about 21st century learner with college and career readiness, how Common Core plays a role into this preparation for the 21st century skills.
Excellent. So a big reason why the Common Core standards were developed was because universities and employers were saying that our students were not prepared for the college career lifestyle. So can I have someone read the quote that's right there? It's also at the top of the front of your packet. Does anyone want to volunteer to read?
I'll read.
Thank you very much.
Learning and innovation skills increasingly are being recognized as those that separate students who are prepared for more and more complex life and work environments in the 21st century and those who are not. A focus on creativity, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration is essential to prepare our students for the future.
So these are what they call the 4 C's, and they were kept in mind when the Common Core standards were created. So critical thinking and problem solving, creativity and innovation, and communication and collaboration. So along those lines, in addition to content standards like being able to divide fractions or multiply decimals, Common Core also gives us 8 mathematical practices. So for instance, students need to be able to make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. We're teaching that directly. Students need to be able to model with mathematics, so that would be kind of a practice that went along with the Guppy problem, having them model out their mathematics, attending to precision, looking for and expressing regularity and repeated reasoning. So I have a short video to show you guys that kind of shows these mathematical practices being showcased in an actual classroom.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Real quick. So is there any thought of why we have to do this?
Why they need to know these skills?
Well, yeah, I mean, probably most of us here went to college ourselves and went through, right? And I didn't have Common Core. So is there some thought, and maybe it's not the right form, and you can say it's not the right form if you want. Why do we have to go to this Common Core when there's hundreds, millions of people before us, before our kids that went to college? Is it because there's more people going to college, and so it's a diluted system, and the tops, just how the top is going, or is it because our education system is broken down over the last 20 years from when I went to college, or?
I think it has to do with the changing of needs, and that was the slide about the 21st century learner. So the skills that were taught 20 years ago might not be as relevant as they are now. I think we have new jobs where those things like creativity and collaboration are being more valued than other skills. So I think we just have a changing career world.
And we'll address that question. We'll address that question. Great question. We'll address that question with more depth later. Let's just present this video in a couple more videos, and then hopefully we can get some answers from this.
We're going to talk about how do we recognize misleading data.
At IS 187 in Manhattan, AEACMS 6th graders are working on a unit on statistics and probability. But in this math class, it's not just about getting the right answer anymore. It's also about communication, speaking, listening, and sharing ideas.
You know when you have a bunch of things and then something's bigger, and when you find the average, it's way different than it would be if everything were almost exactly the same.
My classes now are a little bit louder because they're talking about math and it's not so teacher directed.
Data can be misleading.
AMRL is leading the Common Core pilot here at IS 187, a public school with about 285 middle school students. For today's lesson, AMRL looked at the 6th grade Common Core standard on statistics and probability and used techniques she's learned to design 4 separate, increasingly difficult tasks.
And they know that if they persevere, which is a huge word in the Common Core, if they persevere through doing the mathematics, they know they will come to something good.
Make sense of problems and persevere in solving them is the first of the standards for mathematical practice, which top the Common Core state standards for mathematics and appear at the top of each chapter that follows. They represent the broad skills and expertise that teachers should strive to develop in their students. The content standards contain several key concepts called domains. The middle school domains include the number system, expressions and equations, geometry, and statistics and probability. Ratios and proportional relationships are covered in 6th and 7th grade, and the study of functions starts in 8th grade. The sequences of domains across the grades are called progressions, coherent sets of skills that become more sophisticated with each grade. Phil Darrow helped lead the team that wrote the standards and says middle school math is vitally important.
It is the mathematics you use in real life and on most jobs. Just because it's in a lower grade doesn't mean it's less important.
AMRL's math problems involve things the kids can relate to: sports statistics, grade point averages, and the varying heights of roller coasters at an amusement park. To teach these more rigorous tasks aligned with the Common Core, AMRL has started using something called accountable talk, getting the kids to have conversations with her and each other, which helps reinforce what they're learning.
Why would someone prefer to show one graph over the other? I'll come back for that. You guys have a discussion with yourselves.
I think they would prefer to show this one because because this one's easier to understand.
Emerald also carefully asks assessing and advancing questions to gauge understanding, drive conversation, and push her kids to find the answers on their own.
What did we learn in the last task?
That maybe she used the median.
Why would she use the median?
She wouldn't want them to look at the 32 and 37, so she uses a median because they're the lowest numbers.
How does that relate to the roller coaster task? If I give it to them and if I say it, they're not learning it. You know, I can say it until I'm blue in the face, so they have to have experiences with it, and they have to have discoveries with it, and make mistakes with it, and grow, you know, as mathematicians.
So, along with the Common Core is a new different type of state testing, or it's actually going to be whole country testing, and it's called the Smarter Balanced Assessment, and it's very different than the CST of the past. It's not just multiple choice questions. And they call the different types of questions on the test the claims. So there's 4 claims, and the first one being concepts and procedures, and that covers about 40% of the test. The other 60% is made up of questions asking students to model and use data analysis, to communicate reasoning, and to problem solve. So as an IB school, I wanted to know how this matched up to our IB assessment. So our IB assessment uses 4 criteria as well, and criterion A is knowing and understanding, which I feel like goes really well with concepts and procedures. It's more of that procedural knowledge, can they do the math? Criterion B is investigating patterns, which I feel like has a very strong parallel with modeling and data analysis. Criterion C, communicating, goes along very well with communicating reasoning. And D, applying mathematics in real life, is very closely related to problem solving. So I feel really good knowing that the type of assessments that we've been doing through IB are going to match up really nicely with our Smarter Balance assessment that students will be doing at the end of this school year. Oops, I don't know why I said that.
Hi. So how does Thinking Math fit into all of this?
I'm sorry?
Thinking Math, it's the new math program that was introduced to the elementary school. Is this bridging them? Or is that going to be something set aside? How is the Think Math program addressing Common Core?
I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with the Thinking Math from the elementary school that we use, but I know that, I'll tell you one thing, the students that I get, that we're getting from Albert Einstein, who are using Thinking Math, pretty much have a really good number sense and are able to articulate their thinking, have an easier time. So I don't know if it's that program that is preparing them for what 6th grade is asking them to do, 6th grade math, but I can definitely research that and get back to you on that. I'm not that familiar with that. We use CPM in middle school, college preparatory mathematics. It is a problem-based curriculum or approach of teaching, of learning math. So I'll exchange information with you so we can answer your question.
I'm Christina Jimenez, the other 6th grade math teacher. My room's on that side. I don't know if you've noticed, but this is 2 classrooms, and we can open it up if we want to. It's open up right now. Normally it's shut, but this divider wall gives us a lot of flexibility. We can use it as a whiteboard, so if we want our students to go up there and write things, they can. And it's also wonderful if we want to open up our classroom and have a larger class. We're working on different ways to co-teach that's in the works. So that's what that's all about. So the rubrics, that is what I'm going to talk to you about. And if you look at your packet and you turn the page, you'll see a couple of things. You'll see the standards for mathematical practice that Ms. Last just talked about, both in the language that they're written in as well as in kid-friendly I can statements. And you'll see those hung around our walls. If you turn again, you'll see criterion A, knowing and understanding, year 1 and year 3. So for those of you who aren't familiar, 6th grade is considered year 1 of the middle years program in IB. 7th grade is year 2, and 8th grade is year 3. So this does encompass all of them. There's not a separate year 2 rubric. So 7th grade uses the combined rubrics of 6th and 8th grade. So these are just template example rubrics that we use when grading summative assessments. So criterion 8, knowing and understanding. Notice that there's the 7, 8, which represents an excellent understanding. This is when students are going above and beyond, doing really amazing work. There's 5, 6, which is a strong understanding. Students have a very clear idea of what's going on. They're selecting appropriate mathematics when solving challenging problems and familiar situations, applying it successfully most of the time. Strong understanding. 3, 4 is a basic understanding. I know we've all had questions about, oh my goodness, my student got 4 out of 8. They got a 50%, they failed. And that's not at all what it is. So this rubric is a different system. So 3, 4 does show basic understanding. The student is selecting appropriate mathematics with more complex problems and applying them and generally getting them correctly. On the simpler, they're more complex than the very basic problems, but they're not yet that very high challenge level. So a 3, 4 is not failing. Just want to make sure that's clear because we hear that a lot in the beginning. 1, 2 would be a limited understanding. It shows that they can do problems, simple problems in familiar situations. So we have this variation so we can really see where students are at and what we need to do to help them get to the next level. With this too, when students receive a score on an exam and it's not what they wanted it to be, we look at their progression through the year. So if they're getting a 2, let's say in the beginning, but then really learning from their mistakes, and we help them to do that. We spiral our material so they're seeing it again and again. It's not that it was in Unit 1 and never again will they see this material. They keep seeing it. So we look at the progress that they're making, and that progress and that growth informs their final grade. So that's criterion A. You can turn and you'll see examples of all 4 criteria. Criterion B, investigating patterns. Criterion C, communicating. And criterion D, applying mathematics in real life contexts. So we use the language level descriptors directly from IB of what these levels mean, and then the indicators are things that we add on specific to the task that the students are doing. For the specific task, what does a 7-8 look like? And these again are templates. They're basic ones that we modify, but you'll see this essential format when your students get summative assessments, or if this is what they'll be seeing. So we wanted to make that really clear. And go to the next slide. Another thing we wanted to take the time to clarify at this point is a question that we've gotten a lot from ManageBox, or about ManageBox, I should say. A lot of assignments have a big F next to it, and people tend to freak out and think that means, again, failing. It does not. So F means formative. So that would be our homework, our projects, even our checkpoints, which are, I think we all get checkpoints like quizzes. So that does not mean that the student got an F on that grade. It means it's formative. It's not the final assessment for that concept, just that we're seeing where they're at. We're seeing where they're at and how we need to help them grow. The S for summative would be the big test or the big project at the end that's weighted most heavily in their IB grade. So we wanted to make sure that that's clear, that when we look at ManageBox and see all those F's, it's not, we don't use that grading system. So F does not mean the same thing anymore. I think that's it.
Hello, I'm Nicolette Clinton. I teach 8th grade math. And if you turn your page, you'll have this pathways. And currently at AEA, we have 2 pathways. We have a Common Core, 6, 7, 8, and then we have an accelerated 7th and 8th grade. And previously in 7th grade, pre-algebra and algebra concepts were taught, and then 8th grade it was geometry. And so but now with Common Core, the geometry concepts as well as algebra concepts are embedded into each of the 6, 7, and 8. In high school, the Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 courses are integrated together,
into 3 courses, integrated 1, 2, and 3. And actually the accelerated course in high school is very rigorous because not only does it take the 3 courses, the 3 integrated courses, but it also takes the pre-calculus and brings that into the 3 classes so that the students are able to take calculus as a senior, starting with an accelerated course in 9th grade. And then there's other pathways for them as well. So that's why here we have pending progress for our 7th and 8th accelerated program. Several districts across the U.S. do not recommend students accelerating in middle school because it's really important for them to have the foundation in middle school in order to be successful in high school. So we don't want to have to rush the standards for the students in 7th grade and then wonder if they're able to retain that information when they enter the advanced program. So right now, what we're doing is we're very data driven. We want the best for our students, and so we're taking a look at how we are adapting to Common Core standards as well as the IB standards and how we can best serve them here at our middle school in the transition to high school. And so currently what we have for the placement for the accelerated path is at the end of 6th grade, the students take a pre-assessment for 7th grade, and then also looking at the different criteria for A, B, C, D, the summative assessments, as well as the habits of mind. So work completion, making sure they're completing the work in class, at home, and their collaboration skills, behavior, as well as participation. And then the teacher recommendation will also be considered for that course as well. Yes.
So who's creating the assessment test? Is that coming from a Common Core group, or is that coming from you guys as the middle school math teachers?
I believe the MDTP from UCSD.
Oh no, or is that this past year we used the College Preparatory Math, it's the curriculum that we use, and the pacing guide that I'm using for that accelerated class comes from CPM. So it's the test, are you ready for that accelerated course?
Is it given to all students, or students that you or someone believes is ready to go through that?
So last year it was given to a select group of 6th graders, but then we actually, the first week of school, gave it to every single student.
So that's issued at the beginning of 7th grade.
That's what we did this year, but I think this coming year we're going to give it to the 6th graders at the end of the school year. I think it makes more sense to give it to them then.
Yeah.
I have a question on the pathways slide that you were on earlier. So it seems like the district is compacting their 6th through 8th grade math. Your image is the same as the district with a few modifications. So they do 3 years of math, 6th, 7th, and 8th, compacted into 2. So 6th grade, you're doing 6th grade, Common Core, and then half of Common Core 7. 7th grade, you're doing the rest of Common Core 7, and then Common Core 8. So by 8th grade, if you're on the accelerated path, you are doing 9th grade math with the advanced integrated 1. Now I see there that you don't have an accelerated 6th grade course. So how does that reconcile when the students graduate from here in 8th grade and they go to a district high school, since we don't have an Albert Einstein High School right now? How does that marry up? As I see it, they're either a half a year ahead if they go into integrated 1 because they've already had some of that, or they're a half a year behind if they go into advanced integrated 2.
7th and 8th is taught in 1 year, is the difference. So in 6th grade, we're not accelerating at all because we wanted to look and see how they're adapting to middle school. So then the acceleration happens in 7th grade. So in 7th grade, it's 2 years condensed, so they are taking integrated 1 and 8.
So it is compacted in 2 years
so
into 1 year.
Exactly.
Okay, and then so the integrated 1 advanced in 8th grade is truly the 9th grade class.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
So a little bit different from that same question, but in the 8th grade, if you're in the accelerated path, there's 2 options in going into the accelerated and integrated 2, based on that diagram. Where is that being considered? How do you make that assessment?
So since this is all brand new, so towards the end of the year, it's teacher recommended for the student, as well as a test if they're ready for the integrated 2, advanced, or just the regular integrated 2.
I imagine it'd probably be dependent on the high school that they go to as well, maybe a high school decision.
And how is that approach? I mean, are these students, again, in this collaborative scenario where they're working at a different level than the other students, or are they actually pulled aside to be working through the integrated 1 to integrated 2?
So you mean from here to here, or?
Yes, I guess I'm just wondering, as you are looking at those different levels, how are those students working as a group? Are they working with others in the other areas, or are they working alone as an integrated 1 group?
Right, currently they're a group.
Of integrated 1 or integrated 2. Okay.
I have a question regard to, this looks to me a little bit like tracking, like you're tracking them into different paths in high school. And my question is there a way you can move between, since math is kind of developmental, in middle school you might not like math and then you decide you do, or is this similar to when you had college prep, people going to college, people not going to college? Because probably everybody here in this room is like, oh, my kid's going to be in the advanced group for sure. But they might not be developmentally ready for that in middle school. So how does this avoid tracking?
Right, that's why right now this is pending, and we prefer, a lot of districts prefer keeping it. So then in high school they have that choice to go into the accelerated course. And because they have that foundation, they have those math skills to be able to be accelerated and then take calculus as a senior in high school.
The way that Common Core is designed is that the acceleration does happen at the high school. So yeah, that's why it says pending. We want to see how are our students doing. This is the first year that we've had 8th grade students take integrated 1. So we're watching them closely so we can make adjustments if we need to for next year.
But it's not as strict of tracking like when it used to be college prep and then non-college prep.
And even you can see, like with this pathway here, when they get to high school, there's still 2 options. They're not immediately put into that path. They could go to this path, which does lead to calculus in 12th grade.
Right.
So there is opportunities.
But you can't in college. It's not a race.
There's opportunities to accelerate at the high school level for sure.
But all students will have the opportunity that at the 12th grade will take either pre-calc or calc. Whereas before, algebra. Yeah. So all of them are going to be college graders.
Another question. So the Common Core tests then that the kids are going to do every year are not factored into their test scores, and that test are not factored into any of this at all?
We've never given, last year was a pilot test. We've
I understand.
never
Last
seen
year was a pilot test, and this year's pilot test, you're not doing any results, but in 2 years,
I
you
imagine
are.
that we will look at those.
So you will be looking at those.
Yeah, we're eager to get the data.
So I have a question. So right now you don't have an accelerated 7th grade, is that?
In 7th grade, they're taking the 7th grade and 8th grade Common Core standards.
Okay.
There's one class that's it.
I got another question. I got to go back to GPA.
You know what, we'll go
You lost me on that one.
back.
Sorry.
He's been waiting a long time.
Oh, by all means.
Okay, so a question was asked earlier about the test and who develops the test. There were 2 different answers. Maybe I missed it. So for Einstein, but there should be a Common Core test for all, right? Is that correct?
The
Yes or no?
Smarter Balanced Assessment at the end of the year is given to all students.
Who develops the test, and is it the same to all students?
Smarter Balanced is I think it's called Smarter Balanced.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to speak up.
Sorry, Smarter Balance is the name of the company that has created
Okay.
this assessment based on Common Core standards. It's on the computer, and it's going to be given to students across the whole country.
Okay, so the test is given, the earlier test about UCSD developed it or something, that's different?
Those two tests. Okay, so those are internal. That's for us to help decide
gauge.
before we get that information from Smarter Balance, because that test is never.
Okay, so that's for Einstein, that's kind of
internal. Yes.
Internal for where you're going.
Yes.
Okay. The other piece that I know that I don't have a 6th grader, I have a 4th grader, and this was think and all that math. So not knowing what the earlier leads into, I think that would be helping, to understand so we can change that as well. So I know I'm not in this yet, so I kind of had to find the school first. So yeah, knowing what they're doing to get to where we're at is good. And then all the tests are on computer, solo, and the video we saw was very collaborative.
Right. Yes.
So that could lead and pull weaker students along if you do a lot of collaboration, whereas we traditionally would sit, at least when I was going to school, you sit in your own seat, do your thing. Occasionally you have a project where you sit in a group, you have a couple dominant folks that will dominate the entire time, and then either pull or lead or whatever. Right. But if you rely on that method of discussion and that discovery learning, when they take the test, are they going to take the test that way, or are they going to take it, because some kids may do a lot better if they did it collaboratively by solo, when they do a lot of the classroom is collaborative.
The first part of the test is individual. It is on the computer. And I think traditional group work was kind of that way, where one person would kind of do all the work and there was people who didn't do anything. But I think that lies in the teacher and making sure that there are roles for each of the students in the group and that they're each kind of doing their part. We do things like participation quizzes. We exemplify and highlight good behaviors that we're seeing in group work. So that's how we get around that kind of.
And then how many teachers do you have in each of your classrooms where the collaboration's going on, when the collaboration's happening?
So there's the teacher, and then we have instructional aides. So sometimes I'll have one, or sometimes even 2 instructional aides in the classroom.
So in 6th grade, 6th grade teacher, all of us, we hold every single student accountable, even though they're working in groups and they're collaborating. Every single student is accountable, So we split students into groups. As you can see, they sit in groups strategically, except these tables, then these kids will turn around and look and work with the other kids. But every single student has a role. Every single student in the group has a task. So taking that responsibility starts, and that's what we teach in 6th grade, pretty much, Like, this is your role. This is how you're contributing to your group in the learning. Here's your responsibility. And for the entire year, we hold them accountable for that. So they develop those skills, that accountability. Okay. So again, it's a hard task. It's really hard, but if you can only see the wonders that happens with these kids when they start collaborating, they start really taking a responsibility and making sure that others are responsible for their learning. So that it's a process.
A question about parent support.
Yeah.
So traditionally we had textbooks, and in the beginning of the chapter there was a discussion about what you were learning and then problems and things. And I guess my question is, with all the problem solving, learning, and building block, the new learning methods, when your kid comes home and they're doing their homework and you want to help them, my dad used to pull out the textbook and he'd read the chapter and say, okay, now I know exactly what you're trying to do here, and he'd sit down and help me. And already in elementary school, I don't feel that kind of support for parent teaching at home is available or easily accessible. You have to find it. And so I'm wondering if that's true in middle school as well, or if there are books that are offering that teaching for the parents too, so that we can help support them at home.
Students have access to the ebook. The ebook. So with homework help at their fingertips. So once they get a license, every student gets a license, gets a password and a password. So that's the homework support that they get. In addition, there are parent guides that the CPM curriculum provides for you, with answers for you, to help support your student at home. But yeah, we provide students.
Is that another ebook or is that a physical book?
That's an ebook.
Ebook.
So both
Yeah.
ebook for the student and both
The,
ebook for
the parent guide is a PDF document that you can download, that you can print. I mean, we give you the PDF and you can print it, or you can just look at it from your tablet, your cell phone, from your computer, or if you choose to print, we'll be more than happy to print your copy. Yeah, absolutely.
CPM also has one other resource called a toolkit, and that's a small booklet that's basically just like the notes, more traditional notes with examples, and I think that's really helpful for parents as well. The ebook for CPM is mostly these kind of collaborative problems that you experience with the Guppy problem, but the toolkit has the topic with notes and examples right underneath. And students, at least in my class, they annotate those notes and then do kind of side notes and examples in the margins. And that's how they do their notes.
Sixth grade math looks more like an interdisciplinary unit with English. We do a lot of writing. So they fill pages and pages of writing, explaining their thinking. So these are available for students. We can also, download PDFs. These are the textbooks. I mean, we only have 20. I only have 20 copies of this. I never use this. We use the electronic version of it. I mean, we have cards, computer cards. Students have accessibility to the internet. For students who don't have accessibility to the internet, we create packets that we send students with pretty much all the classwork and homework material that they see. So this is, each packet is 1 unit or 1 chapter, and they take this home. They have this in their math binder or in their section, math section. Who's seen this before? Is there anybody who's seen this before? Okay, and you'll see this in a couple of years. So. And again, these are PDF files, also accessible through ManageBack.
And just to go back to a comment you made earlier about Smarter Balanced, and they're doing all this collaborative work, and is that how they take the test? Well, actually there is a part of the test, the performance task, that is a very rich problem that's based on the kind of inquiry learning that they're doing, and they have this part before it called the classroom activity. The classroom activity is a dialogue among the students, and it is directly related to the performance task that they will then take individually. So they will take the performance task section of Smarter Balanced on their own, but there is a classroom activity preceding that where they can get their collaborative juices flowing and really spark conversations that will lead to them performing well on that performance task. So there is that collaborative nature built into Smarter Balanced, and so in a way, those collaboration skills are being tested. Yes?
So how do you address different learning styles? Because some children may not digest a lot of material from a collaborative standpoint. Maybe they're a type that needs to understand things individually and then they can collaborate. How are those different types of learning addressed for each of the different children?
I mean, I think we do a lot of collaboration, but we don't only do collaboration. There is a time when they need to do things on their own individually and practice them. So just because we have collaboration isn't at the exclusion of individual learning all the time. So,
and we scaffold a lot of the problems, the work problems, especially the sixth graders. They're reading a lot. Everything is work problems, but there's always that scaffolding. There's that portion like at the beginning of class, for example, let's warm up, individual work, introduce the lesson, do some brainstorming in problem solving. Then towards the very end of the class, I start intervening more in summarizing what we learned. There may be some time for them to take notes. Notes don't take more than 10 minutes. But at that point, students have already investigated and researched and troubleshoot on how to solve a problem. Then at the end, the notes help summarize that. And if we see that more practice is needed, then we identify those things. We get to know your students. We get to know them individually. We'll know at the end of the day who needs more practice and not, and then that's when we individualize, their learning. Again, it's a learning process. We just know when they need it, and what they're just part of.
You said it twice now, and I'm very concerned that we don't know how to bridge Think Math to Common Core. You haven't communicated that you have done that. When you said you didn't even know what Think Math is, and we have some 4th and 5th graders here that are going to be doing Common Core soon, and Common Core has been out for 2 years now. I would think we would know the answer, how we bridge what we're teaching our 4th and 5th graders today to be successful at 6th grade when they come into this classroom.
I think we're just being cautious to speak to the elementary content, and I think we're, all of us are walking away going, yeah, let's have a dialogue with elementary and make sure that we understand Think Math. I can speak for Principal Bowders that they have aligned the math curriculum in elementary school with Common Core, so it is built in a sequence. So we know elementary has aligned their content to Common Core, so we know that our 6th grade students are engaging in the practice of Common Core content. So therefore, they're ready for us in 6th grade. What we can't speak specifically to is the curriculum of Think Math. That's just not the curriculum that we use, it's the curriculum that the elementary school use. But we can say across the schools with confidence that the elementary is aligned with Common Core and they're preparing our new students for us. We just don't want to get into Think Math because that's not our content, that's not our curriculum. It would be like them speaking CPN because they don't use that. So that's the platform that we're using to teach Common Core is college preparation.
I like it here where it's like, yeah, we look at the book and we know, what the content of what the 5th graders do in the last half of their year, and that we've recommended some changes to that based on what we know we need the 6th graders to do when they start 6th grade, and I didn't hear that.
Right, I think we're aware of what the Common Core standards are for 5th grade, just not specifically that curriculum. But I think you bring up a great point.
They're not teaching Common Core standards, they're teaching Think Math.
Think
Math, that's the math they started
is
2-3 years ago, right?
It's aligned to Common Core. So, and I don't want to speak about what I don't know with the elementary school math. I don't want to misspeak. I think, we are aware of the 5th grade standards, and I think we've revealed, hey, that's a good piece of our continuum. Let's continue this dialogue.
And we have 6th graders coming from all over as
Right.
well. So there's so many different programs that they're using in 5th grade.
Just hearing Common Core, it sounds very similar to Think Math.
It is.
Yeah.
I agree it is.
That's the
but
philosophy of Think
And
Math.
I think that's a really good point.
Mental math and
Right. Our kids come from all over, so we don't just get, elementary students from Einstein. So every 6th grader that gets in front of us could use Think Math or whatever adoption that the school that they chose came from. Common Core is what unifies us. Common Core is what helps us know that because their elementary school is mandated to be teaching Common Core, whether it's through CPN, whether it's through Think Math, whatever adoption they take, then we can all trust each other and then use our pre-assessments to see where our kids are at.
Yes.
So.
Okay, I think maybe there's some misconceptions of what this was going to be about, because as a room parent, we sent the email out, 4th to 8th graders were invited. Sounds like we're focusing on the 6th to 8th grade. So I think us, with the younger students, we're kind of anticipating a little bit more of where our kids are going and what's going on. So you're not really, not that you aren't capable, but you aren't established with the 4th and 5th graders to tell us what's going on. Because as I read the email, it says 4th through 8th, and you're talking 6th through 8th and then beyond. But really, our concern is that, okay, we've got a 4th grader now, or at least that is, and this is what we want to know what's going on. So I think the set here is talking 6th and up, and there's some of us that are 4th and going on that we want to know, specifically the Einstein. So that's where some of our concerns are.
And I think we can share with Principal Bowders is a math night that's very focused on elementary. We have gotten feedback that elementary parents want to know our math continuum. They want to understand what's happening when they get into
And maybe that's a learning curve that when we do a middle school event, really focused event, that maybe there should be some grade school. I mean, we're obviously representing as parents, but as the educators, just to be able to discuss it a little bit smartly that are there.
Sure.
So, because we are split now, so to have that representation there, so they can bring the water back. I mean, you all are going to send notes back, but to have a person from, let's say, the math here in the lower grade would be nice.
I think that's a great point.
Can I speak to that really quickly?
Yeah.
That's a great teacher in Einstein. It's my first year teaching 5th grade, which is part of the reason that I'm here. Is because I think both schools recognize that we need a lot more alignment between the schools using the new curriculum. So that is happening currently. And when I go back, I'll speak directly with the 5th grade teachers so that this communication can be.
And I think as a teacher, you should be up front. I hate to say it, but you should be up front and not, you should be the one carrying the water for the grade schoolers.
That's the intention for the future.
And I'm glad.
Thank you. But I'll tell you one thing, just to, I guess, to give you a little bit of peace of mind.
as a sixth grade math teacher, students who come from our Einstein Elementary and who come and start with us, they come with pretty good, strong number sense skills. And that, I don't know if that answers your question, but it's pretty much aligned. You know? So, but yeah, further collaboration with the elementary and middle school to follow. 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to wrap it up. Thank you so much for your questions. And just want to wrap up this evening with the following video.
Like it or not, life is full of measuring sticks. How smart we are, how fast we are, how well we can, you know, compete. But up until now, it's been pretty hard to tell how well kids are competing in school and how well they're going to do when they get out of school. We like to think that our education system does that. But when it comes to learning what they really need to be successful after graduation, is a girl in your neighborhood being taught as much as her friend over in the next one? Is a graduating senior in, say, St. Louis as prepared to get a job as the graduate in Shanghai? Well, it turns out the answer to both of these questions is no. Because for years, states have been setting different standards for what students should know and be able to do at each grade level. That's making it too hard to know if our kids are really doing well enough overall. And if they can really compete for a job someday. What we really need are clear goals. That's where the Common Core state standards come in. They're like a total sea change in education. Consistent, strong, clear benchmarks for English language arts and math. Here's how it works. You can think of kindergarten through 12th grade like a giant staircase. Each step is a skill your child needs to learn before stepping up to the next one. But right now, too many kids aren't really confident with like 2 + 2 before they have to move on to 2 × 2. We need more focus on the skills that help them move up the stairs, or they can slip up and fall behind. And there's another problem. What if everyone's stairs were made at different heights? Well, here we go again. They are. So, a boy in Seattle who's rocking an A in English literature could be getting a C on his Chicago friend's staircase. Oops. We need to create consistent steps in education too. So first, each standard creates a landing on the staircase, a stop along the way as your child heads toward high school graduation. Each stop is a chance for every parent and teacher to focus on the skills their students are supposed to know at that step, no matter the zip code, language, or race. And more importantly, each standard makes sure all students are learning what they need to know to get to graduation and beyond. Because something like counting to 100 leads to understanding dollars and cents, which eventually leads to understanding how to manage a budget. Secondly, the standards are consistent from school to school, and they match up against international standards too. Now we know how we're doing compared to just about everyone. So even though local communities will still design their own curriculum, with the same rules, everybody can compete on the same kind of staircase. But standards aren't learning. That's why we need teachers, parents, and students to help make that happen. By working together to help kids meet these standards. The world's getting more and more competitive every day. But now, when our kids get to the top of their staircase, they can have way more options on where their life goes from there. Clear goals, confident, well-prepared students. That's the Common Core state standards.
Well, again, we thank you so much for coming, and I want to give our teachers an amazing round of applause.